There goes that.
Are we live? Are we
Yeah,
here?
we're live, baby.
Let's go. All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome in to CLNS Media's Draft Central coverage, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media. I am Mike Kadlick, and I am joined by Taylor Kyles. And we're excited. And you know why we're excited? Because Drake Maye is a freaking Patriot, baby. They made it happen. They made it work. They stuck. They picked. They wrote it out. It was Caleb Williams. It was Jaden Daniels. It was Drake Maye. And from what Elliot Wolf told us, Taylor, that was really the plan all along. They
Mhm.
knew that Jaden was going to Washington weeks ago, according to Wolf. They stuck. They sat. They picked. And the person who really we thought was a fit for the Patriots all along, going back to like November. We
Yep.
sat in those rooms and we talked about it when the season was dwindling away. We want Drake Maye to be here. And that's what happened. So as we get into it, we're going to listen to what Drake Maye had to say. We're going to talk about that. We're going to do a quick recap day one, where the Patriots are at, where they go from here. But Taylor, first and foremost, I know we kind of did it earlier on Draft Central, but your reaction to Drake Maye being the next quarterback of the New England Patriots. What do you got for us?
I'm fired up, man. I've been saying, like, I warned you. I was like, I'm going to be very unprofessional if the Patriots actually get Drake Maye, just because I thought he had the highest ceiling of everybody who wasn't Caleb Williams. And, Bill Belichick actually had a pretty succinct explanation of, what Drake Maye brings and what he still needs to work on. And he said, like, he's got a great, ceiling. And even, who is it? Who's the guy with the hair? Oh my God, it's so bad. The ESPN draft analyst.
Oh, Mel Kiper. Yeah.
Mel Kiper. Geez, I was going to say Merrill Hott for some reason. But yeah, Mel Kiper, he isn't really a fan of May, but even he was like, yeah, he's got Hall of Fame potential when he starts in like next year, 3 years, 4 years, and got kind of crazy about it. But in all seriousness, you're hoping that Drake Maye is someone who you can bring to your coaching staff and have them bring out all the good things in him while kind of weaning out all the bad habits, some of the inconsistencies and all those things. And that's why you bring in Alex Van Pelt. I've said it a couple of times, but TC McCartney is an unproven commodity at this point. But Alex Van Pelt said even when he was in Cleveland and was hired to be the offensive coordinator, but wasn't the quarterback's coach, he still said he planned on being heavily involved in the quarterback room. You'd have to think that's going to be the case like it was with Baker Mayfield, as it's going to be with Drake Maye. And the fact that we know that like everybody was on board, where Elliot Wolf said that he talked to, Ben McAdoo, he talked to Alex Van Pelt, he talked to TC McCartney about what they thought of Drake and whether they thought they could really bring the best out of him and if they could, give him the structure to really help him be the best he could be. And they did. And you saw the room. Dude, I've never seen Matt Gross. I don't think I've seen him smile ever.
With smiles? Yeah, that was hilarious.
Open mouth smile. It was crazy. So, that kind of energy, man, coming off the season they just came off of, it's nice to see. One, you've already heard, from players that there's a different energy and a different vibe in the room. Drake Maye even said it during his press conference that, it was pretty good vibes when he was in the facility. Complimented Gerard Mayo. Everybody loves Gerard Mayo, players coach, guy who's already proven. But, it's exciting. This is what we wanted. Now, we can look ahead and it'll be a better picture of what the outlook might be once you actually get the receiver and get the tackle and all those things and help support him. But this is the perfect first step. What you got to give this an AA plus. This is one of the few times, Christian Gonzalez, obviously, one of the few times you look at a Patriots draft pick and you're like, hell yeah, I'm not mad at all. They nailed it.
That's the thing too. It's like they didn't overthink it. They didn't do their trade backs, their typical Patriots, trade backs that we've seen for years. It wasn't stressful. It wasn't it was just, it was chalk. It was right. And it happened. And you mentioned too, hey, the vibe, the vibe in this new era and Gerard Mayo and everyone likes it. And Drake Maye is excited. When we were down in Gillette this evening, we spoke to Drake Maye over video conference, and that dude is just genuine, fired up, Southern drawl, excited to be a Patriot. And we actually have the clip. So if we can roll, Drake Maye talking about being excited to be a Patriot, we'll play that and then we'll react to it.
One of the best nights of my life, and can't wait to get up there and get started and get to work.
Oh, watching your film, man, one of the things that stood out was your ability to attack the entire field, inside and outside. So I'm curious, say it's 4th and 7 with the game on the line, whether it's a concept or a route, what would you say is your bread and butter play that you feel really comfortable with?
Yeah, no doubt, I think throwing up something over across the middle. I think, I got to see it well. I'm big 6'5" dude back there where it's a seam shot, big dig, in the corner routes, corner post, anything across the middle of the field. I feel like, I'm can make a throw, make all the throws, and I'm excited to If it's not there, I can go make a play for myself. So I think that's the most looking forward to it, and help him kind of expand that game into the NFL.
That was awesome. I had that question queued up for like a week. I was ready.
I was gonna say, so while that actually we had another clip, it's fine, but about him being excited, that was still the super excited, ecstatic Drake Maye you want. And I even think about too, like I wrote about it earlier for the website where Alex Van Pelt's new offense, I asked him too, like, what do you like about it? And he just has this like rambling on, like, and he finally gets to the end. He's just like, and I'm just super excited for Pats Nation. And he like said it every time. I was like, this guy just wants to be a Patriot. And look, I tweeted that, he wants to be a Patriot. And a couple people were like, well, he just wants the money and he's just the number 3 pick. And like, it's wherever he is. And like, I get that. Of course, the guy would be excited wherever he goes. But there was a genuineness to him today. So it was awesome. I think it's, like you said, it's an A+ for what they had to do, what they did today, because they stuck, they picked, they made it happen. And I think their plan for May, where Gerard Mayo said it, that he's not automatically the starting quarterback. And Drake Maye understands that he's not automatically the starting quarterback. They have Jacoby Brissett in the room. They have Alex Van Pelt ready. We've talked about it 3 or 4 times here, Taylor, and we talk about the footwork, and that's the kind of thing that he has to, get himself set up with. But if it's going to be a place, right, it's going to be Alex Van Pelt, his system, the footwork guru. And I keep calling him the footwork guru. He's not the footwork guru, but his system relies so heavily on it that it's naturally going to, you hope, come to him, through practice, through learning the system. It's,
and Van Pelt's one of the few coaches who can actually fine tune that during the season, because most offensive coordinators, they're talking about scheme, they're talking about matchups. You go through all the drills before practice and all those things, but everybody does that. There's not a whole lot of, there's like a hitch here, or no, you need to be, your foot's here. That doesn't happen very often because, one, there's just so many other things going on, but also a lot of times offensive coordinators aren't really trained in that area. Even like some quarterbacks coaches in the NFL level aren't really super fine-tuned to the footwork. And then you get a guy where it's like, no, this is a system that, his mentor learned literally from Bill Walsh, like the OG when it comes to this West Coast footwork. So literally, I was talking about it for weeks, that if you want Drake Maye to go somewhere where that footwork is going to be more disciplined. I was watching Jacoby Brissett tape actually last night just to get an idea. And you can see with Jacoby, every time he throws, it's from that wide base and it's consistent. And, even if Drake does want to be a little more narrow, kind of like a Lamar Jackson, where it will affect his accuracy, but at the end of the day, you want guys to do what they're most comfortable with. Because if it's wide and then he doesn't feel right, and then that throws other stuff off, you're just going to exacerbate problems. But whatever it is, Van Pelt is going to be like, hey, if this is, what you feel comfortable with, we're going to do it as close to the way I want it done, but we're going to make sure it's consistent. RG3 said it. That's the whole thing that kind of threw him off. And again, it's exciting because I feel like he's gone to a place, even though everyone makes the Patriots out to be some kind of black hole for a rookie quarterback, they've got a lot of pros surrounding him. I think they've got really good leadership as well. And the coaching staff, again, TC McCartney, we're not really sure yet, but I really do think he's got a good supporting cast right now.
So in the meantime, we have Amit queuing up some more footage from Drake Maye's press conference. But before we get to that, and before we dive into what's next, because we still have day 2 and day 3 of this thing, and we're going to get into all of it. Brandon Aiyuk trade, the cast around him, what they need to do, pick 68 moving forward. I was curious if you, and I had to bounce from the first Draft Central, but if you saw the report that the Patriots called the Chargers on Justin Herbert's availability. Did you see this?
No, I didn't.
So this came from Adam Schefter. This came from ESPN. Adam Schefter said that the Patriots and I believe the Vikings were among teams who called the Chargers this past week on the availability of quarterback Justin Herbert. Now, they were shut down immediately, and they were told that he's not for sale. But I guess now that I see it and you don't know it, what's your instant reaction to hearing something like that?
That's wild. But I mean, Justin Herbert is a better player. I love 100%. Drake Maye, but when you talk about, like, we keep comparing him to like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, but there's always that caveat of like, yeah, but he's like a tier lower, where Herbert and Allen, like, Drake Maye's a freak, but those dudes are aliens. Like, they're not of this world where like their arm strength is like top tier. You don't see that kind of thing. Herbert, especially with his mechanics and the way he is in the pocket. I remember studying him last year, and I'm like, it's crazy how many times he made up for his lack of protection where he's getting the ball out a split second before guys are going to hit him. So, like, I mean, I don't think it's any kind of slight against Drake Maye. Drake Maye is not even close to being a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen right now. He's got the talent to be kind of in that caliber of player where he's just so dangerous and someone where if he's playing at the top of his game, there's not a whole lot you can do to stop it. But I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you'd even have to give up to get Justin Herbert. That sounds like multiple first round picks. So I don't know.
I wonder if it was like, I wonder if it's like, hey, what's Jim Harbaugh's affinity for JJ McCarthy? Is it real? Can we trade you 3?
Yeah.
We take Herbert off your hands type thing. But again, it's due diligence that you have to do as a front office, you know, seeing with a new regime come into LA with Ortiz and with Jim Harbaugh, obviously. But, you know, the other way I look at it, and I'm sure that there's people out there that are like, oh, well, they say they were gung-ho on Drake Maye, but then they called about Justin Herbert. Like, how is that possible? It's like both of those things can be true at once. You can have conviction all the way. Drake Maye, he's number 3. He's our guy. We love him. That's what we're going to do. And still make a call to LA and be like, hey, what would it take for Justin Herbert? Like, that's just doing due diligence. That has nothing to do with Drake Maye. That doesn't mean you don't love Drake Maye. There's this attitude where, well, if you like the guy, just take him. And I get that in some instances, like instead of trying to get funky. And if they were to trade back and trade forward, and you know, we did all those situations last week, but
thank God we're done with that.
Thank God it's over. I know. Thank God we have our guy. We have Drake Maye. But yeah, kind of fascinating that they ended up making that call.
And also the fact they wouldn't entertain trades for Herbert tells you like, he's literally an invaluable player, even in a Jim Harbaugh offense where you know they're going to run the hell out of the ball. And they're still like, yeah, no, we're not even talking about Justin Herbert. So yeah, no, it makes perfect sense because Drake Maye still is a gamble. All these guys, Caleb Williams is a gamble. Jaden Daniels is a gamble because you don't know what they're going to be in the pros. You know Justin Herbert's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and an all-pro caliber player. So yeah, it's a fascinating storyline, but I would just leave it at that. It's interesting, but it doesn't say anything against Drake.
So we talk about the footwork. We talk about the West Coast offense, West Coast adjacent offense, I guess, that Alex Van Pelt's going to run here. I asked Drake Maye about this earlier, his thoughts on playing in the system and meeting Alex Van Pelt. So let's cue that up if we can. Amit, please.
Alex Van Pelt too before. Did you get to meet him when you were up here? And what do you know about the offense? And what are you looking forward to running his system?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You heard me, coach, and maybe met first time at the formal interview at the combine. He was asking some questions, and then went up there for the third visit and went through some of the film, outside zone scheme, and they like to throw it around. He was showing some clips and play action stuff with Rodgers back in the day in Green Bay. So I'm looking forward to being in that offense. I know they had a lot of success in the past, and just look forward to kind of finding my way to best contribute to the Pats nation.
Aaron Rodgers, huh?
He just loves it. He just loves being a Patriot.
And the best thing about that Van Pelt offense, like we always talk about, when you think of West Coast, most people think of like slants and the underneath stuff where it's like, the pass is the extension of the run. But the way Alex Van Pelt does it, a lot of it is that hard play action where they're trying to go vertical. Like I think they were top 3, top 5 last season in downfield throws or deep passes. A lot of that had to do with Joe Flacco, but that's Drake Maye's. That's a strength of his game. He's not really great in that underneath part of the field, and that's where he really needs to get better. But if you're going like run and the run game's going and you can use that hard play action and take the top off defenses when they're vulnerable, he's going to eat. Like that's the kind of situation you want to be putting him in. So it's really exciting because once that once the more routine stuff does become routine, then it's like, oh, this is a guy who can dice us up on a down-to-down basis. And if we decide we want to get aggressive or we're sleeping out there, he's going to exploit us downfield. Like when I asked him, what would your play be if you could just, it's a game winner or whatever? He's like, I want to throw over the middle, which you love to hear because not a lot of quarterbacks do that. It shows his anticipation, the ability to read the defense. He's also like, yeah, but I'll hit the corner too. Like I'll throw outside. And it's just – I keep saying it's exciting. I feel like I'm a broken record, but like this is what we wanted this whole time. And just the talent in that offense and knowing that Van Pelt is going to put him in positions to use his arm and use his deep accuracy it's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited for fans.
So what are the downsides then? Let's be negative for a second. Yeah. And obviously it's no fun and we're excited and I'm excited and there are negatives. And I ultimately think that this is going to be the right pick, but how does this go wrong in your opinion? Like what what has to go wrong in order for Drake Maye to ultimately be a bust here?
I mean, he doesn't get the coaching he needs. And if anything, like his bad habits get exacerbated where it's like the over aggressiveness never gets reeled in. And he just actually becomes Josh Allen, where he's making boneheaded decisions on a consistent basis.
Josh Allen.
Like, dude, but evil Josh Allen. Yeah. Where
right.
even if it is kind of like Allen, where it happens so much that it does put your team in a hole, because Josh Allen's great, but you've also seen plenty of times where he's lost his team the game because of his poor decision making. So it's if his accuracy never really gets good enough to where like he's not sailing passes, because, it's one thing to miss high on like a corner route where it's not even, no one has a chance at it. But there's also times like the South Carolina or the NC State game where he threw a crossing route that was high and behind. The receiver tried to get it. It bounced off his hands. I think it was Tez Walker or somebody. And then he got picked off. Where like when you're throwing over the middle, that inaccuracy is a lot more dangerous. Or even when he's throwing a lot of out routes, the short out routes, he tends to throw in the dirt. But then when you get more to like the deep out routes, a lot of the time he'll leave the ball inside. And when you do that, you even saw it against Clemson where the guy was able to punch the ball out, but smarter corners, they can jump that and pick it off because you're supposed to be throwing those routes to the sideline so that only your receiver can get it. Instead, he's giving defensive backs an opportunity to make plays. So really, if you're talking worst case scenario, his accuracy doesn't improve, at least on a consistent basis, or he has plenty of splash plays. Like that's the thing. Drake Maye, for him to be a bad player, I really think the system and the coaching would have to almost be working against him and completely not supporting him because he is so talented. You saw.
And are you confident that they have that here?
I am. I absolutely. Okay. They have professional. Like, I mean, it sounds. I feel like as a fan, it sounds like something you kind of just say, where we have NFL receivers, but no, like Hunter Henry and Kendrick Bourne and even KJ Osborne have proven that they are solid players at the very least. Like Hunter Henry's a great red zone guy, great security blanket, really good, especially for a young quarterback who goes over the middle. Kendrick Bourne might not be as explosive, but he's savvy. Like we know Kendrick Bourne knows how to get open. He's also got a great catch radius. And assuming he has some of that explosiveness still, he's good after the catch. We don't even talk about Pop Douglas. Think about it. His best receiver in college was Josh Downs. And when we did this whole process last year, talking about receivers, it was Zay Flowers as first round Zay Flowers, Josh Downs is day 2 Zay Flowers, and then Demario Douglas is day 3 Zay Flowers.
Right.
And Demario showed plenty of times last year. He can get open downfield. He can separate. Guys just weren't. This was not a downfield passing game last season. There were so many opportunities that weren't taken advantage of. So I know we're supposed to be talking about the bad, but
it's all good.
I mean, I do think they have enough players.
Excited. It shows that
getting that alpha will be the thing that puts them over the top. And that's when I think this receiving, like Brandon Aiyuk, Kendrick Bourne, and Demario Douglas, that's a damn good offense. And then if you get Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper's fine. He's solid. But then you get maybe like an explosive tight end as well. You've already got Ramondre, who I think is still an extension candidate. Antonio Gibson, who's explosive and a good receiver who can also contribute downfield. Maybe you get another running back who's explosive as well. Like you get 3 young guys who can also kind of mix in and be some explosive presence. And I think they're probably going to double dip a receiver. This is an offense that looks a lot different. And I think the offensive line, as long as Chuks Okorafor can do on the left side what he did on the right, I think he's solid. Like Donovan Smith helped the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl with Donovan Smith.
Right.
You can get away with like solid tackle play. And we've already seen that Drake Maye can compensate for bad protection. Now, at the same time, he's young and you want him to get enough structure where he's not constantly thinking like the left side of my line is going to collapse. But I think Chuks is one of the better like mid-tier offensive tackles when it comes to pass protection. He just isn't very well rounded because he's not a great run blocker. But I mean, a left tackle, there's worse things.
So I still think, and I know you would agree that left tackle has to improve. Like Okorafor is a fine stopgap. That's not what you want to do moving forward.
Right.
However, we look at the chat right now. Brandon Aiyuk was mentioned. That's just mentioned Brandon Aiyuk.
You're wrong.
The 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall. So we just did Drake Maye for 20 minutes, but we're going to shift our focus. We're done with Drake Maye. We're talking about what's next. Before we get to it, a reminder, CLNS Media's Draft Central is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Make sure you go download the app today. You can use code CLNS50 for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, not CLNS50, just code CLNS. I'm sorry, I'm already back in the groove here, but CLNS on the Prize Picks app for a first deposit match up to $100 on Prize Picks. So shifting focus now, Taylor. there is a lot to get to day 2, day 3, because they hit it. It's good. Solid pick, whatever. Like, we get all that. Elliot Wolf said they still have to support Drake Maye any way they can. Sherrod Mayo alluded to the fact that they still have holes on this team. They have pick 34 coming up. And as I just dropped my mic. As I just briefly mentioned.
It's midnight. It happens.
As I just briefly mentioned, the 49ers just drafted Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall with pick number 31. So there's been rumors that Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk are on the trade block. The Patriots need a wide receiver. If you're the Patriots, what's next here? What should they do at 34? Do they dangle 34 for Brandon Aiyuk? Do they stick and pick a wide receiver? Because A.D. Mitchell's on the board. Ladd McConkey's on the board. Keon Coleman's on the board. Do they shift the focus to tackle? Do they wait with wide receiver after reports that KJ Osborne has had a good camp so far? Like, where do you see this team going? What's your opinion? What do they do? Because before we came on air, I'm kind of ranting here, but before we came on air, we said they can do a ton here. Like, there's a lot of different options here. And even though they have just 34 and 68 tomorrow or today, if this is when you're watching this, what's the plan? What should they do in Taylor Kyle's opinion?
So I think the top priority should be trying to get Brandon Aiyuk. And Ian Rappaport actually mentioned right when the Ricky Pearsall, right before the Ricky Pearsall pick, I think was confirmed, he mentioned that the Commanders or the Patriots, he specifically named them, could try to package their second round picks, but the Patriots have the second round pick after the Bills now. The Bills now have the first one. But they can package that and maybe like a late round pick or two for Brandon Aiyuk, which I think, like, if you can do that, hell yes. Because I don't think any of the receivers that are left in this receiver class period are ever going to touch Brandon Aiyuk. Like, A.D. Mitchell has the talent, but he fell out of the first round. I think that says a lot about what teams think about him. One, even if it's not, a character thing or an effort thing or whatever, it's the consistency where it's like, why wasn't he more productive in college with all this talent? Like, yeah, there was a lot of talent around him, but it still doesn't make sense. Like, you're talking after the catch, like consistency, it just wasn't there. And Brandon Aiyuk, we already know, is a top 10. Honestly, if you look at the numbers, he's like a top 5 receiver. Earlier, I said that he was better than A.J. Brown. And then I kind of backtracked because I was mostly joking and said that they're just different. I actually looked at the numbers. He was better statistically than A.J. Brown, which, I'm a film guy, so I don't like to just go by numbers. I think that's silly. But I do think that you could just say, yeah, they're different flavors, but they're both dominant wide receivers in their own different ways. So I do think that Aiyuk should be the priority. That said, that's because, like, I'll look at the receivers that are left. Ladd McConkey.
Before we get to them, it's Brandon Aiyuk, and I just the only reason I want to get in here because I've been on Team Aiyuk for this team for a long time. I think it makes. I don't want to say it makes too much sense, but it kind of does. Like, there's this recipe, and I kind of sound like a broken record when I do this, but there's this recipe for young talented quarterbacks where whether they're a rookie or a second year, you go and bring in that veteran pass catcher who can be that blanket, that security binky, whatever you want to call it, and help you get through the rookie's ups and downs and the fact that, you might struggle. And there's just this guy that you can go throw it to. Like, you look at freaking Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. Now it's going to be CJ Stroud with Stephon Diggs. They did it with AJ Brown in Philly. They did it with Tua Tagovailoa in Miami with Tyreek Hill. Like, it's just, and they have all this money to spend, and not all this money to spend because, there's the back and forth on do they spend the money or whatever. And they got to that threshold. They cut that cap space that they had in half, but they still have plenty of it. They can go get Brandon Aiyuk. He's a guy who can come in here and help rejuvenate this team. And Taylor, I'm going to steal something you told me just before we came on here. Drake Maye is the most talented quarterback Brandon Aiyuk has played with in the NFL. He was there with Jimmy G. He was there with Brock Purdy. He put up 1,400 yards with Brock Purdy last year. Imagine what he can do with Drake Maye when he hits the ceiling. Like, come on. It's too obvious. They need that guy. They need the guy on the outside. You asked the 3x1 question, or you asked the question to Elliot Wolf, and then he mentioned the 3x1 stuff with an X receiver who can split out wide and just beat guys one-on-one. That's Brandon Aiyuk. Yep. And when I say it's that simple of an idea. It's not going to be that easy for them to go get him. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they're stupid for not getting him if it doesn't happen, because I believe they're going to try. Tom Curran reported that there's the framework set up for an Aiyuk trade. You just mentioned, Ian Rappaport mentioned that, those are two teams that could go try and get Aiyuk. So I believe they're going to try. And if they swing and miss, we'll see what happens. But it would really, really, really help this team, Drake Maye, the idea around the wide receiver room, and just that offense that Alex Van Pelt's going to want to run in general if they can get Brandon Aiyuk here.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about the Commanders and the Patriots specifically in this race, Brandon Aiyuk has connections with somebody on both teams.
Mm-hmm.
He caught passes from Jaden Daniels in college. Now, this was a lesser version of Jaden Daniels, but I think Josina Anderson said that they're live right now together. Jaden Daniels and Brandon Aiyuk are on live together. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, that's not a great sign. But also, Kendrick Bourne and Brandon Aiyuk are friends. And Kendrick Bourne has been campaigning for Brandon Aiyuk to come to the Patriots. Now, the Patriots have the second pick in the second round, higher capital, but at the same time, the Commanders are only 2 picks away.
Right.
And with Brandon Aiyuk and John Lynch, I think he's going to want to help, especially if it's that close. Unless the Patriots just straight up outbid the Commanders, I think that John Lynch is going to be like, hey, is there somewhere you really want to go? Because a lot of the time, these teams tried, especially for veteran players who've done a lot for the team, they try to give them some say in where they end up going. So honestly, unless it becomes a real bidding war, I don't really know how great the Patriots' chances are if, Aiyuk really does want to just reunite with Jaden Daniels. So it may not even be in the Patriots' hands. But, I was saying, like you talked about the X receiver question, looking at the receivers available and why I think, even though I'll talk about the tackles in a second, I do think that's an area of concern. But looking at the receivers left, Ladd McConkey, really good player. We've talked about it. He's not an X. A.D. Mitchell is an X, but on this rebuilding team where you're trying to establish a culture, do you want to take a chance on a guy who might not be consistent, may not have the work ethic that you're looking for, and maybe you have to kind of supercharge him? Some of that comes down to coaching, but do you want to take that on? Who knows? Keon Coleman, I don't think he's really a prototypical X. I think he's a ball winner. I think he's way better than people give him credit for. I'm sure the chat's going to love that I brought him up, but he's not Aiyuk by any stretch of the imagination. And I also, frankly, would rather trade back if he was somebody they wanted to target. Then Roman Wilson, not an X. I don't think he's a good fit on this team. Troy Franklin is someone they did have for a 30 visit, someone who has experience at X, but also has that same Tyquan Thornton
Just
profile.
gives me Tyquan vibes. I just got chills thinking about Troy Franklin.
He's a better route runner. I think he's got more wiggling. He's better after the catch, but he is undersized. He's got small hands. Like, it's the things about Tyquan that scare you. And then Malachi Corley, who obviously is not an X either. Those are the guys that are probably going to get taken tomorrow. Now, I love Javon Baker, so that's my third round guy where I think he's super talented and can be an X, although he's just got those inconsistencies that he's got to work out. So Aiyuk is the best receiver that you're probably going to get early, like relative to the early round 2 guys. Now, if you do trade for Aiyuk and you miss out on the tackles that are available, and the top tackles left are Patrick Paul, who thought he was going to go in the first round and might be somebody who starts within his first season, Kingsley Suamataia, who I've been saying I hope that's who the Patriots end up getting, where in that sense, I think it's kind of a win-win, to be honest, because you get Brandon Aiyuk and you get your bona fide alpha receiver that makes your whole offense look completely different. Or you can get Patrick Paul or Kingsley Suamataia, who are very good tackles, like guys who have very high upsides and could be potential Pro Bowlers if you can maximize their talent, which you hope happens with Scott Peters, because he learned from Bill Callahan, one of the best offensive line coaches in NFL history. So those options really aren't bad. Especially if maybe you can get a trade back, get some more picks, and then get them. But then Brandon Coleman, who is a bigger guy, I think he could still play left tackle. But and then Roger Rosengarten, who's undersized, probably can't really play his first season unless it's more of a swing tackle role. Sure. And I think he's got a high upside as well as a left tackle, and could also play either side of the line. He played right tackle, but it was for Michael Penix Jr., who's a lefty. So he was a blindside protector, and I think he can do both. So if you don't get those guys, though, then things get a little bit more complicated, because then you're banking on either Kieran Amegaji out of Yale, who's got a super high ceiling. He's super talented, but he came from Yale. And there's going to be some development that needs to happen, similar to Kingsley, where you might need to let him take a redshirt season, which you could argue, like, I think Kingsley has a higher ceiling. Also, he was a captain, which I really love in those bloodlines. Like, I'm sorry, that's very exciting. Like, he's got a family of freak athletes. So they're kind of in a similar boat. And then after him, who's the other one? I literally tweeted about it. It's Kingsley, and then it is Blake Fisher, who I think really is more of a right tackle. So if you do get Aiyuk, which I'm all for, your offensive tackle options honestly aren't fantastic. Now, obviously, all these are developmental guys. So if they do like Kieran and Mega G, that's awesome. I don't think they've shown any interest in him, though. I don't think they had him for a visit or combine or
not that I can recall.
Yeah, I don't think any meeting was reported. So that's my one concern is maybe if you love Javon Foster, if you love Travis Glover and think they have legitimate starting potential, which I think they need to prove. I think they're talented, but there's also some issues where like Foster's footwork isn't super quick. And the same with Javon. I'm sorry, it's so late. The same with Glover, where he really is more patient and wins with his length and compensates for his lack of foot speed. But I really do think if it's not Aiyuk, I think it has to be a tackle. Even if you want to trade back and get some more picks and then get your tackle, I feel like a non-Brandon Aiyuk, that's your best case scenarios. You get more picks, you get your tackle, and then you get Javon in the third, or another receiver in the second. If you can finagle that. Actually, that wouldn't make sense. But
no, I'm kind of with you. I think that order of preference, if you will, would be Aiyuk, a trade back, and then the tackle. Because look, the tackles kind of went towards the end there. You talk about Guyton and Jordan Morgan going, and they're still. I mean, Kingsley and Patrick Paul are sort of that next level. 34, at least for Paul, feels like a reach. Kingsley makes a little bit more sense, and maybe not a reach for Patrick Paul.
You mentioned if he was getting first round buzz,
yeah, I guess.
Value. I think he was getting undervalued in the process.
If you like him, grab him, stick him at left tackle, and that's your guy for the next, half.
I'll see what the beast has him as. I'll check real quick. I'll see what that is.
So I still think it's Aiyuk. And again, you talk about AD Mitchell, Lad McConkey. McConkey's not really that X. He can do it all, but he's not necessarily an X. And then AD Mitchell, I'm a bit a fan of him. I'm surprised, frankly, that he didn't go tonight. But when you look at it and you weigh your options of trying to get Aiyuk, and you level it out like we just did, you go get Aiyuk, or you just sit and take AD Mitchell, it kind of feels like such a step down. It's like, well, we should just trade back. Elliot Wolf mentioned they want more capital. And I just feel like that would be a move that would make more sense for the holes they want to fill, because again, you can trade back, you can still get a solid tackle, you get more picks, and like Bill Belichick, picks are, well, like every team, but everyone got so mad when it was Bill around here. Picks are currency, picks are king, and Wolf wants more. They want to make more, make more selections. So ultimately, we'll see where it goes.
They're in a very good spot. I just think I still think they're in a very good spot, because the receivers that are available don't really fit unless you do want to bank on AD Mitchell or you really like Keon Coleman. None of those guys in the second round are really what you need. And then the tackles, it's like you trade back. If the tackles are gone, then you can keep getting more picks, maybe get a good value for a Brandon Coleman or a Roger Rosengard and Kingsley if he slips. I think you can really just kind of let the board come to you, which is a great place to be after you just got your quarterback. You're kind of in the driver's seat.
Right. So here's a look at what we have going forward. You talk about the position there and talk about, being in the driver's seat, what have you. Tomorrow, starting at 7 p.m. is the second round. We have pick 34, the second pick of the second round. Then obviously pick 68 also comes tomorrow. And then on day 3, they have 103, 137, 180, 193, and 231. So what's that? 7 picks left, 2 tomorrow. And we go from here. But like you said, Taylor, they are in a good spot, especially with Drake Maye. They're in a good spot. They have their signal caller. They have feelers out for Brandon Aiyuk. There's talent on the board, and they can move up. They can move back. They can use that 68. They can move it back. They can move forward. There are options. There are players, and they're in these good spots to fill out set holes. So before we get going, Taylor, I don't have one off the top of mind, but I'm curious. What's your bold prediction for tomorrow in rounds 2 and 3 for the Patriots?
Bold prediction.
And I completely gave you that on the spot, so I'm sorry.
Does Aiyuk count?
Sure.
I think Aiyuk has to be the bold prediction, because again, I'm looking at the board for receivers and I'm honestly not that wowed. This is a deep receiver class, but it's not deep at X. That's not fair. I think it is on day 3, but those are all developmental guys where there's no guarantee that they're going to live up to their potential. And then offensive tackle again, I feel if you trade back and those guys are gone, then you're kind of in a weird spot. And I feel like if it's not Aiyuk, I think you kind of have to get one of those guys after a small little trade back, maybe just a couple spots. But yeah, Aiyuk has to be the bold prediction. I think that's
here's mine. They trade for San Francisco 49ers wide receiver, Deebo Samuel.
Oh, Samuel. That is pretty bold.
It's
I
bold.
hope they don't do
Another
it.
one. It's going to be one of the two, I think, who ends up getting traded. And
I love Deebo, but one, he's not an X. He's not a guy who wins one-on-one, and also the injuries. Like I don't know why. I'm not going to say I don't know why a team would trade for Deebo. That'd be silly. He's also like a captain. Like he's clearly a very valuable player. True. But for a team that's probably not going to compete for at least like 2-3 years, Aiyuk's still young. And if you pay him, that'll make him happy. You'll be like, yeah, I'll be part of a rebuild. If you're paying me $32 million a year, like, hell yeah, I'm on board. Especially with Jacoby, where one thing I would be worried about is with Drake early on, like missing him a lot when he's wide open. Like I could see that being frustrating for a guy who's, year alpha. But Jacoby, if Drake Maye does have that concern, he's good. Like he'll hit an open receiver. And there were a ton. I was looking at that Cleveland tape. There were a ton of high quality throws when he was with the Browns and in Alex Van Pelt's offense. So yeah, I hope it's not Deebo. I really hope
it's Brandon Aiyuk. Pray on it, sleep on it. Let's go to bed. Let's figure this thing out. Let's reset. Let's rejuvenate and get ready for Patriots Day 2 of draft. So everyone who's on live right now, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Or T. Higgins. Maybe.
Oh, that's a good brand. That's a good bold prediction.
I keep forgetting about him. I'm so excited about this. Aiyuk, I want more. It's like Aiyuk for me, then T. Higgins is like right here, and then Deebo's here.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah. Right. So go get T. Anything. So good news here for all you Patriots CLNS fans. Myself, Taylor Kyles, Brian Hines, and Alex Barth will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. right here on Patriots Press Pass all over Twitter. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Twitter. He's Taylor Kyles, TKyles39. I am at Mike Kadlick. We're going to be back with a Patriots Beat Pats Daily crossover tomorrow morning, again, 10 a.m. to recap what just happened tonight and what to look forward to tomorrow. Again, here's a little graphic here with our CLNS Media Patriots coverage. We're here all weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So make sure you tune in and keep it here for all the latest. Until tomorrow, again, remember, we are powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Use code CLNS for a $100 match on your first deposit on the Prize Picks app. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. I appreciate everyone's support the last couple of days for myself, too. It means the world. Happy to be back here doing all this Patriots coverage for y'all. So, again, until tomorrow morning, we'll see you. And do us a favor, me and Taylor, and pray on Brandon Aiyuk tonight to the Patriots. So we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Thanks for tuning in.